So starting with a very common question about customer discovery in Web3, how is it different compared to Web2? And considering that there are very few users in Web3 and slower adoption, how should we glean maximum insights from user interviews or whatever data startups have on the users?
So thank you, Arti, for a very pertinent question, which I feel most Web3 startups don't ask themselves, which is where are the customers going to come from? I think what a Web3 customer is still kind of in the gray. Is someone who holds your token. A Web3 customer is someone who connects your wallet to your application. A Web3 customer is someone who transacts on your network. A Web3 customer. These are still being defined through the startups that we are looking at. But initial thoughts, it seems like that Web3 kind of organizes itself in communities, and these communities are often owned by businesses. And whenever I launch a product, it almost feels like I have to, as a founder, find my users within existing communities that somebody else owns. So in a sense, if I had to draw a parallel to the B2B world, it kind of becomes a business to business or a B2B2C type of outreach that most usable Web3 projects have to go through. Pareen, what do you think? I think you've driven growth for a Web3 project as such before, and it would be interesting to see how you classified customers and what did they mean to you?
So yeah, I mean, this is a really tricky one, and most Web2 strategies that have been established for a while fail out here, because what you are doing is introducing people to a whole new world, whole new paradigm first, and then telling them about whatever you are building, right? Unless you are a layer 1 or layer 2 solution, you are first trying to convince them why decentralization is needed. What I would say is the best way to segment your customers here is not demographics or geography or anything like that, because there are people around the world who believe in decentralization, right? And the way to go about it is to figure out what is the legacy system that you are replacing, or what are the improvements to the existing systems that you are getting there. Once you clearly define that, figure out who are the most unhappy people in the existing systems. That's the lowest hanging fruit. You go there and say, hey, you guys are already unhappy with whatever you're using. You have these problems, and here I'm solving this. This becomes the easiest way to segment the first set of people. These also become evangelists eventually, because they're just excited that you're solving this problem. That's all that they need to get on board. And then second level is where these people create so much noise that you have a brand that's recognized widely to be dominating this particular category, saying, okay, now I know in this category, these folks are the best. So that is generally how you go about it. Many crypto projects have said awareness is our biggest problem. Like, I'm building a decentralized identity, but now I have to educate why blockchain is good, why decentralization is good, why decentralized identity is needed, and then they may become my customer. Right? This is a very costly affair to do. So generally speaking, I would say creating a core tribe is the way to go about it. And to find these people, you just go to existing platforms where people are super unhappy and get them, even if need be one by one. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I think also this big thing that is missing from the Web2 world is identity. I can identify people by their Twitter accounts, their Gmail IDs, their GitHub accounts, there are attributes that user accounts hold, and in large platforms that are targetable. This is very hard to do when it comes to what the de facto identity layer is in Web3, which is your wallet, right? It's still at it's a very rudimentary thing, and my on-chain analysis probably gives me an identity so far as to what I do with it, as opposed to who I am, what my likes and dislikes are at a personal level. And so the general marketing methodologies, which is finding user preferences and identifying means and appeals to attract them, is almost impossible when it comes to core Web3 users. This is still evolving. We are trying to glean subjective data out of, there are so many projects that we've seen that are trying to glean subjective data out of wallet activity and essentially building personas on how a wallet interacts. But up until that is done, I think Web3 marketing is relegated to purely building communities who essentially go out there and try to foster word of mouth. Any marketing guru will tell you that there is no way you can control word of mouth. It is something that happens, and there are very few, success markers that can repeatably do that. But at a core level, I think if marketing has to become streamlined in Web3, wallets have to perhaps start to share a lot more attributes at a targetable level, which again kind of hits that philosophical questioning of, do we really want to share that with platforms? Do we really want to share that personal data with people so marketers can then use it? So there is still a very push and pull type of scenario that is going on here. Pareen, did you feel that when, say, you were trying to do wallet level targeting to people? And do you see that in some of the startups that you talk to?
Yeah, I think unless a startup really has a ton of users in the first place, it's very hard. A lot of competitive analysis keeps on going, and that can be done on various public analytics tools as well as of now. But definitely there is a need for a specialized layer of analytics tools that's just addressing this part, which would probably be replacing the Mixpanel or the Google Analytics of the world. And there is a ton of more data to be had, actually. Even without launching a product, you could look at who's using your competitor's smart contracts, right? And how are they using, and profile them in a lot of ways. But it's a data challenge. I think from an acquisition perspective, unless the protocol is a direct competitor and there is a way to target these people, I think it would be much easier to just figure out where they hang out, instead of their wallets. When wallet messaging and wallet communications will be there, probably this problem gets solved, and there will be some kind of marketing tool attached to it, and there are opportunities there as well. But I think till that time, it's much easier mostly to hang out where your users are. If you're building a football, fantasy football game, there are a ton of people out there who are in the Web3 communities who love fantasy football in the first place already. Or there are tons of distressed users that legacy games have, right? Just tell them that this is decentralized and they would be very happy to at least give it a try. May not keep using it, but still give it a try is a good acquisition strategy.
Yep, completely agree. I think it's all about channels and partners at this place, and kind of going and sitting at where your competitors are and find the closest equivalent to what your product is, and figuring out ways of communicating to them. But that kind of comes back to the core issue that Web3 doesn't have users. Very small percentage of people actually interact with Web3 products. And see, in the long run, I truly believe that a value accrual of products in Web3 will happen at the application layer. But that is not going to change until fundamental ways of onboarding users into Web3 changes. But here's the thing that is worth thinking about, right? Most growth in Web3, whether that is financial or usage or token holders or however, is speculation driven. Because the primary place where I go and experience a Web3 product is through its token, which I find on a product that's completely disassociated by the actual product that is natively uses it, which is on an exchange. And then there is perhaps a subset of that may actually end up saying, hey, what can I do with this? Right? What do I do with Uniswap? What do I do with Comp? What do I do with Ether? Right? Apart from flipping it and making dollars on it, I think the other usage is, hey, what do I do with the token? So that kind of brings Web3's, if I had to define the Web3 market from a user standpoint, in the short to mid term, it seems like a very low TAM market, but a very high LTV market. low TAM, it's total addressable market, just too few users. But then if the product genuinely has use, then it is a high lifetime value market as well. A handful of users can account to very high token market cap or transactions or total value locked or total NFTs minted. Very, very few users can actually do that. So in a way, it's kind of the antithesis of how Web2 products are looked at. A high TAM, generally high LTV market, low churn market is essentially considered to be a great Web2 product. In Web3, I think you kind of have to forego the TAM question for the time being until we figure out a way that people come on board. But if you're able to, that first 1,000 fans theory is so much more pertinent in Web3, because those 1,000 fans are all you need to create $1 billion product in Web3. Pareen, would you agree?
Definitely. I think this is pre-adoption era, right? And I think the infra adoption in itself, what you said about wallets, being there is so much friction in just creating one wallet, right? Which was not ever experienced by anyone out there, at least coming from Web2 background. They just are used to one-click Google or Facebook login in some way. And everything being taken care of for them. They just need a browser and an internet connection. Now we are changing all that. I think there is a big role shift that will happen eventually when the masses are here. Today, there are more MetaMask users than last cycle, primarily because prices, people come in, they want to trade, they want to swap, they want to self-custody it. It's a process. I think I would compare it to having to try and use a mobile phone for the first time. It was very big, very clunky, and had some rotor for scrolling and all that, right? The UX and the level of technology innovation in terms of UX was bad. Plus, I was used to a very simple landline phone, which was extremely simple to use. Now, this takes a lot of time from there to reach to a level where we have touch screens. Takes time. Plus, for the user to understand that, okay, now wireless has so many advantages over a wired phone. Now, both these have to change. And in this phase, while this doesn't happen, startups are going to struggle with what we call awareness problem or adoption problem, or where are your DAUs, MAUs problem. But the best brands that also survived were the ones that were persistent, right? And then they bet on the right market. They kept doing this. I was just discussing Bookmyshow with someone right now, and most people don't know, but Bookmyshow started in 1999. Right? Imagine starting a movie ticket website in India in 1999. No one even shopped online. Right? Not many people had internet connection, but they survived for first 10 years by selling software to these movie cinema halls. And when the internet adoption happened after a telecom revolution, they were there. They were like, okay, now e-commerce is booming, internet is booming, we are there. Right. So this timing is what is causing this problem, whereas a lot of products that are being built right now are actually pretty good for not millions of users, but at least hundreds of thousands of users out there. But we will have to cross this phase. Until then, all we can do as founders is to figure out what works even in a non-scalable way. And frankly speaking, there are more people willing to pay premium for good products and platforms in crypto because people have made so much money. Definitely, it's a survival game out here, I think.
Yeah, I think it kind of all boils down to founder perseverance. But for now, I think the takeaways from, say, how do I do customer discovery is find all the customers you can find in Web3 because there aren't many of them. Figure out ways of communicating your value add in places where people closest most likely to use your product can find them and figure out consistent ways of communicating with them. Focus heavily on community marketing because on building a community. I wouldn't even say community marketing, building a community, because there aren't enough meaningful ways of attracting users in Web3 because of philosophical and infrastructure reasons. And hang in there is probably the last biggest point to take away from here, because you cannot time markets, and timing markets is being at the right place at the right time has been the single marker of success and failure of every startup that has ever existed. So I think that probably covers most of what you were looking for, Arti, or did you want more?
I just had one question, because both of us addressed this fact that there is very little information available about the users that we have, categories, identities. It is difficult to put them in those buckets. And you also addressed that it is like moving from landline, a very clunky phone, to a smartphone. We are all bound to struggle, figure out a little bit. So since this is a problem, at least for B2C startups, would it be wise the temptation of attacking Web2 defaults? First, informing consumers that what you are using, your Web2 default, and what is wrong with it, and then introduce them to your product, or just have
No, I
them.
think that is exactly the strategy should not be to inform or make people aware that what you're using can be bettered in some way. The way to do this is to find the 100 most unhappy customers of this legacy system that you are going after, and those 100 will be very willing to work with you to actually design a better product. Don't just look at them as your first 100 paying customers out there that, oh yeah, I have traction, I have revenue and all that, but work with them and say, hey, we are on this mission, let us solve this together. They will be your core community. They will be the first 100 people on your Telegram or your Discord channel. They'll be the first people who will come on your community calls. They will be the first people who will go out there and talk about you to their friends, saying, hey, I am using this, I think this is better, right? So that is what you want. Otherwise, the other route is to spend a ton of money, which is not that great, frankly speaking.
Well, I don't know what the answer is. The answer to your question is I don't know, because sure, you could find your first 100 most unhappy people there, and there is a conversion that can happen there. But getting into crypto to then, so it's almost barriers to entry, right? Like, understand why decentralization, understand how decentralization is done by this tech, understand why my product needs to be decentralized in the first place, and then understand this really complicated way in which you can use this to solve that one small problem that you may have that really irritates you, right? And I'm almost tempted to say that find native Web3 users as opposed to finding people who need to be educated about Web3, because you cannot invoke a Web3 project without invoking Bitcoin, Ethereum, decentralization, and then my product that comes into this place. So there are some projects that have actually done exactly what Pareen has said, and it has worked. But the most successful Web3 projects that we're looking at right now are people who are looking at going after audiences that already understand crypto to some extent. And most of these companies find their biggest users at the infrastructure layer, right? Be it an Alchemy, be it a Polygon, a Covalent, even Uniswap for that matter, Curve, Aave. These are the projects that have users and revenues and net positive. They're at a net positive from a sustainability standpoint, right? And by sustainability, I mean business sustainability. They will run forever. They have an ecosystem that will keep it running. And it seems like to build for Web3 is almost to build for the already converted, and then hope that other awareness means or other ease of use means brings more users into Web3. So the right answer from my vantage point right now is I don't know. You're probably better off building for crypto natives first.